Before we start this long ass video, I just want to give a huge thank you to DEDMan of DEDMan Gaming Wins for helping out extensively with this project. If you guys haven't seen some of his Everything Great About videos, I recommend them. After all, there's nothing wrong with positive content. Now, let's get...
Wait a second, Omega. There's something I gotta ask you before we start.
What's up, man?
What's gonna happen when Sin Counter shows up? Should I be worried for my life?
Oh, well, you're not gonna have to worry about Sin Counter, at least for this video.
Why not?
Well, you see, after its hasty little retreat during my last video, I got curious as to why the hell it suddenly bolted on me. So after Revelations 2 was done, I kind of went looking for my AI co-host, and then I discovered what its current fixation is. Yeah, so I'm not expecting Sin Counter to pop up again as he's busy. So, without further ado, let's tackle this beast.
Omega, I have so many questions.
I'm not sure you want answers, man.
Seconds till the end. Time enough for you, perhaps. But what will you do with it? Let's see.
Were you fond of the 90s? Video games sure are if you paid any attention to the release schedule the past year. Most of the best games of 2019 and 2020 were also the best games in the later half of the 90s. There's a remake and remaster of every game you receive for Christmas or birthdays. Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Medieval, Resident Evil 2 and 3 just to name a few. And now, Final Fantasy VII. This isn't even the only remake Square Enix is releasing this month, with the Trials of Mana remake releasing right on the heels of Final Fantasy VII. But at least those remakes and remasters managed to fit all of their game into one release. One can't help but compare Square Enix's multi-game approach with Final Fantasy VII to Peter Jackson turning The Hobbit into 3 very long movies. I understand the argument that more games gives them more room to flesh everything out, but that ended up being the main issue with The Hobbit. A lot of minor moments and characters get stretched out in order to put time on the clock, and it also leaves a lot of questions up in the air, such as, is the gameplay going to stay identical across all games even with there being a couple years in between each release? And will my save data progress to the next game regardless of balancing issues?
Jesus, tap dancing Christ, man! This opening scene is so bloated and dead sounding, I think I should consider calling an EMP to bring a defibrillator. But anyway, let me try and break down that incoherent mess of words. Let me start right here.
But at least those remakes and remasters managed to fit all of their game into one release.
I don't know how closely you followed these games before they're released, but Final Fantasy VII Remake was planned to be a multi-game release in order to tell a complete story aligned with how the creative team envisioned it. One of the benefits from this approach is exactly what you say here.
I understand the argument that more games gives them more room to flesh everything out.
And your pointing out of minor characters being fleshed out is also rendered moot by your own acknowledgement, so congrats on shooting yourself in your own ass. As for the technical things you pointed out, I don't understand how you think this game and the subsequent follow-ups won't be nearly identical. Look at the Mass Effect games. To kill two birds with one stone, these games play very similarly to each other and save data transfers worked just fine. And Mass Effect isn't the only series to do this. And if you guys watched my last video, which was on Resident Evil Revelations 2, you know how many sins he's getting for this bloated nonsense.
Midgar is one of my favorite video game cities. But that love doesn't blind me to the fact that it makes absolutely no sense to build a double-layer city when you can expand outward into all this empty space and at a fraction of the cost, with all the well-off people living on the top plate while the poor live in the slums below. This is the type of city planning you come up with when you are fixated on making sure the plebs know their place. Shinra is fortunate that the only extremists in the world are the environmental variety. If Midgar ever got its own Karl Marx, they might have a bigger problem on their hand.
It's symbolism, plain and simple. Rich live on top and poor live below. It's not a sin to use symbolism over practicality in a fantasy video game.
Halt! Who goes there? You're up.
Barrett hired Cloud to serve as muscle and do all the fighting for the bombing run on Mako Reactor 1 while the rest of them slip past. But just because Cloud is present doesn't mean Shinra security wouldn't attack the other Avalanche members. These two guards stand there and let Barrett run right past them and focus solely on Cloud.
Maybe. However, notice how Cloud is the one drawing his weapon. And if the soldiers did attack the other members of Avalanche, Cloud is fast enough to deflect their gunfire. Oh, and by the way, the other 3 Avalanche members were hiding from the Shinra soldiers. They do this more than once. That's how they got by undetected.
What about the timer?
Your call, Merc.
In order to make Avalanche seem like less of a violent terrorist cell, the remake changes their intention with the bombing run. Jesse's bomb is only supposed to destroy the reactor core to disable it, not destroy the entire reactor complex like in the original. However, the game still allows you to select a countdown time in order to escape the facility like it will destroy the entire place. If Avalanche was only planning to destroy the Mako pump, then they could have set the bomb to go off in 30 seconds and been far enough away to be safe.
No? Even if the destruction was on a smaller scale than the original, you'd still need a pretty big bomb in order to destroy the pump. In what universe do you want to only be 30 seconds worth of time from an explosion, rather than 2 or 20 minutes?
The boss fights and soundtrack get special mention for going above and beyond my expectations. The first boss fight alone could be other games' final boss.
And here's the first of many times where I'll flip my script and actually remove sins on my end because you do acknowledge how fantastic this game is.
Shinra wasn't aware that Avalanche was going to attack the Mako Reactor 1 tonight, but decided to capitalize on it with a plan that they had nowhere near enough time to think through. President Shinra decides to destroy the reactor himself after the bomb only destroys the pump. Since that wasn't enough damage for the public response he wants in order to pin the blame on Midgar's rival, Wutai, and start a war. Shinra even has a phone app that sends all the robots in the reactor crazy to destroy it just in case.
And why exactly is that a sin? It's very possible they have contingencies like this in place should something like this happen. Keep in mind, Shinra, aside from being a power company, is a mega corporation that has ties in the field of economics, infrastructure, and politics. They also have their own military and have divisions for space travel and genetic engineering. With all that power Shinra has, doesn't it make more sense that they would do whatever it takes to keep that power?
Jessie's immunity to rubble falling on her here in the reactor raises my eyebrows, since falling debris is what kills her later.
That's called foreshadowing, and possibly subverting expectation due to the fact she may still be alive.
She's good to go. Fire in the hole!
While I know the truth of the bombing, the rest of Avalanche shouldn't be trusting Jessie's bombs to get them out of the sewers after the unexpected high yield of the reactor bomb.
The problem with this sin is that you're not showing the scenes of Biggs, Wedge, and Jessie at different points expressing surprise and doubt of the unexpected collateral damage.
Looks like we made it. And with nothing but a few scratches to show. Think you might have overdone it?
I followed the instructions to the letter. Maybe it triggered a reaction with the Mako?
Well, let's hope the city's still in one piece.
Structures in the area are at high risk of collapse, rendering the entire sector hazardous. Therefore, all residents of
No way.
This couldn't have been us, could it?
But what if it was?
What's done is done.
Merc's right.
I can't
wait to set foot on the surface.
Little help, Cloud? Please? I can't stop thinking about it. The bomb I made shouldn't have produced an explosion that big. It doesn't make any sense.
The explosion triggered a reaction with the Mako. You said so yourself.
That was my first guess, but shouldn't a reactor have fail-safes to prevent that kind of thing? You mentioned invisible enemies back there, right?
Right.
No. I'm just looking for excuses for something that was clearly my own fault. Gotta own up to it if I'm gonna learn from this and move on.
This could explain why they're not taking extra precaution here.
So, what's our next move, boss?
That's easy enough. We get our asses home!
Making your escape by running through the city streets while wearing weapons and armor isn't the smartest escape plan.
So, what's the best escape plan then? Go ahead, we got time.
Motherfucker!
Yeah, that's what I thought.
For a game that only comprises the first area of the Final Fantasy VII experience, which didn't include Sephiroth at all, the game gets in such a rush to add him in with hallucinations that they end up giving away a lot of the later major events, which could leave the future games a little thin on impact.
Sephiroth is one of the most iconic characters in Final Fantasy, if not gaming as a whole. It would have been insane not to include him to some extent, given his enormous popularity. The game is also setting up a Change Your Destiny storyline, which could mean later story elements could be drastically different as this game does.
There goes Cloud's chances of a positive match on Tinder. What you see here is the height difference between a 6-foot man and a 5'11" man.
Everything wrong with Final Fantasy VII Remake, ladies and gentlemen. Memes. Also, what the hell is a tender?
The sound of her voice, bleeding from despair, the shiver of her flesh yielding to cold steel.
Cloud has a bad case of dead parent cliché. I can't think of a single Final Fantasy protagonist where that isn't the case.
We have Marsh Radiuju from Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, who has divorced, not dead parents. There's also Zidane from Final Fantasy IX, who also doesn't fit your description. And we have Theodore Harvey from Final Fantasy IV, The After Years.
Run, Cloud. Run away. You have to leave. You have to live.
Sephiroth is really good at ASMR.
Maybe, but that's not really something wrong with this game.
The Mako reactor just blew. You shouldn't be out here trying to self...
Help me!
The Whispers are completely new and the biggest addition to the story of Final Fantasy VII, essentially being stand-ins for die-hard fans that want the plot to stay the same and follow the course it is supposed to follow, and they act to make sure events play out correctly, except here when they assault Aerith for no reason. Cloud would have run into her just the same as he did in the original game without them interfering.
This is a tricky one. But from what we know about the Whispers, they directly intervene in events throughout the game to force things to happen in a specific way. Cloud meeting Aerith was intended, but their appearance here is not suggesting that they're trying to prevent Cloud and Aerith from meeting. Because if that was the case, why didn't they intervene before to assure Cloud wouldn't run into her?
Shinra security saw which train Cloud escaped on. There's no reason they can't order the train to stop so they can raid it. At the very least, they would know where this train stops at, and therefore where to look for Avalanche.
And what about the possibility that Cloud could get off the train before it reaches the next station and take a different route? Also, even if they find out the station where Avalanche gets off on the train, that doesn't automatically point them in the direction of their hideout for all they know.
What the hell you been up to, huh?
Giving public security the runaround. That's what. Had to draw them away from the station somehow.
I feel like that would be a more solid plan if Cloud hadn't jumped on the train in full view of Shinra security.
Dartigan repeats a sin to pad his sin counter cliche.
You are learning, young grasshopper.
Come on, let's move up.
Instead of staying hidden in the freight car they have all to themselves, Baron has the group move up into the passenger car, where they stand out like a sore thumb.
The observation is correct, but why the hell are you pronouncing Barrett's name as Baron?
One thing I can't fault with this game is the presentation. Characters, cinematography, atmosphere, and even dialogue are all on point and impressively done. I even forgot this was a JRPG, where many of those points are lost in the localization.
Nothing to dispute here.
My money. You guys owe me 2,000, remember?
I do. And we'd love to settle up, especially since this was your first job for us, but...
That's it?
Sorry. We spent the rest preparing for the mission.
Cloud should have demanded a standard business arrangement, half now, the other half when the job is done. And 2,000 gil seems like a small fee for a job that will land you on the bad side of Shinra, the mega corporation that rules the world.
You're doing better with these sins and this video in general, which is a breath of fresh air compared to what I've already covered, but on this one, you don't know the exchange rate of gil.
I'm collecting money for filters tomorrow, so I can pay you after.
If the water filter business is so lucrative, you have to wonder why Tifa bothers running a bar.
Tifa takes care of a lot of people in the slums. I can't imagine she does that with one job. Besides, if you're poor, why not hustle to make a few extra gil? Also, unless the filters need replacing every week, it's not that stable as a full-time job.
What are you doing to Marco? This is his apartment. He's got a few problems, but he's not a bad guy.
How does the landlady, Marl, make any money off of her property? She's letting Cloud and Tifa live here rent-free since she supports the cause. And there is no way someone like Marco is earning a living.
Okay, but you're only mentioning these 3 people. Have you forgotten that these slums have many more residents?
We'll do you one better. Spread the word to everyone who'll listen about the new Merc in town.
Between him and Wedge, there isn't anyone they don't know.
I'll march through the streets singing your praises, even on an empty stomach.
The word-of-mouth campaign rewards Cloud beyond imagination. Cloud just shook down the weapons dealer over a junk water filter, and then the same dealer gives Cloud a free sword for publicity. Could happen, sure. Could happen within hours of a shakedown. No.
But Cloud getting the new sword happened precisely because of the positive word of mouth, which spread quickly in the slums. Word reached the weapons dealer, so he decided to change his attitude with Cloud.
Candidate detected. Performing physical analysis. Sizable weapon, excellent cardiovascular health, and impressive lung capacity.
Chadley is more out of place in this game than the Whispers. He feels like an NPC transplant from a different JRPG. If you finish every single one of his side quests, he reveals that he's an android created by Hojo, so his character doesn't exactly fit in any better by the end.
Oh god, here we go. Son, what the hell are you talking about? Do you realize how you're contradicting yourself right now? You probably don't, so let me point this out. He's Hojo's creation and he isn't human. That's why he seems out of place despite acting like he's normal. And the random adding of the word character to your subtitles and the fact that you don't say it counts as Dartigan doesn't follow his own script cliché.
You wanna live? Then get the hell out of town.
You got it, boss. You ain't never gonna see my face again, I swear!
When not playing Spider-Man, Yuri Lowenthal is consistently typecast as pathetic and cowardly characters. It's one hell of a weird juxtaposition.
Yuri Lowenthal getting additional work is a sin apparently. Also, cowardly and pathetic aren't exactly the character traits of these characters that Yuri has also voiced.
The entrance to the Avalanche base is under Tifa's bar, accessed by putting money into the pinball machine, which is something that would happen daily as customers used it. Avalanche doesn't take many precautions when it comes to keeping this operation discreet. The front door is unlocked, so anyone could enter and overhear conversations or see someone using the secret entrance.
God damn it, another multi-sin. Ugh, okay. First,
under Tifa's bar.
That's the second time in this video that you're mispronouncing a character's name. Dude, each character's name is said aloud in this game. I fail to see why it's so hard to say it in the same way it's pronounced. Second, how do you know the method that activates the mechanism to access the secret room? We don't explicitly see Barrett nor Jesse putting money into the machine to activate the said mechanism. For all we know, there could be a hidden switch under the machine. Third, the front door being unlocked is again not a huge problem that isn't easily solved. It's a business that operates at its peak during late hours, and we don't really see it operate during the day. It has a bar after all. And the unlocked door can be resolved by simply locking it, while random people coming in can be resolved by simply closing the bar. We see Barrett doing this in the original game, and it's implied in this game from this exchange.
I don't think I've ever seen 7th Heaven close that early.
I know. All I wanted was to finish my show. How dare they kick us out?
Oh, don't take it personally. You heard how much Tifa apologized?
We won't be needing you for this next job. Feel free to look for work elsewhere.
Your next job is bombing another reactor with the same crew and method as last time. If you don't need Cloud for the next job, you didn't need him for the first.
There's a few different reasons to not bring Cloud along the second time, one of which is Cloud's callous attitude throughout the first chapter. This is backed up by this line said by Barrett.
When the job's done, we're done. Your words. So what? Now you give a shit about the cause?
Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse died pretty early in Final Fantasy VII, so they never received much character development beyond what their blocky polygon models were capable of portraying visually. FF7 Remake has some time to kill and plot to stuff, so you spend a great deal more time with them. The only issue is that their character development doesn't go much further than it did in the original. Wedge is fat, so of course he talks about food in every line he has. Biggs is... well, they didn't really get around doing much with him in the remake either. And Jessie is a woman, and her biggest character trait is creaming her jeans over hot anime boys like Cloud.
How is any of that bullshit a sin? We didn't get a lot of characterization for these three in the original, and now the remake is fleshing them out more to make us care about them. How is that a sin?
I'm planning on using a weaker blasting agent this time. But since I can't get in touch with my supplier, our only option is to loot a warehouse owned by Shinra.
Your supplier? According to Johnny, you got your blasting agent by using his ID to break into a warehouse and stealing it, which is exactly what you were planning to do tonight.
Okay, and maybe due to what happened with Johnny earlier in the game, Jessie tried to work out something different in order to acquire the materials she needs.
Model citizens don't steal blasting agent. So why don't you tell me why your ID popped when we were going over the warehouse logs?
Huh? You got it all wrong. I've never gone anywhere near a Shinra warehouse. That's my ID.
Your ID was never lost, dumbass. Never got you inside a Shinra installation in the first place. But don't you worry. We'll take all the time we need to help you get your story straight.
I swear, all he had to do was keep his mouth shut.
Yep.
She literally says they're going directly to the warehouse because she can't get in contact with her supplier.
But since I can't get in touch with my supplier, our only option is to loot a warehouse owned by Shinra.
Roche is another new character. He only shows up in this chapter to act like Dante from Devil May Cry. About the only thing I took away from him is he wants to have sex with his motorcycle, and possibly Cloud, just like everyone else.
Sinning characterization. Characterization is not a goddamn sin. And I'm pretty sure Barrett doesn't want to f*** Cloud.
Jessie needs her dad's Shinra ID card to break into the local warehouse to retrieve the blasting agent for her next bomb. Since her dad is in a coma from Mako poisoning and Jessie uses his ID to enter the warehouse where he worked, I think Shinra will track down the culprit pretty quickly. Jessie's likely endangering her parents.
I'm gonna play a bit of devil's advocate here, but even though this could possibly be explained by Jessie being a bit naive about that, and that would almost count as characterization, the point you bring up cannot be ignored.
When are you going to give up on the gold saucer? How long has it been since you even performed?
Jessie's mother actually buys her daughter's story that she's working as an actress at the Gold Saucer even though she came to visit wearing plate mail armor and along with two friends armed with weapons. I'm guessing her mother won't notice how odd it was that the warehouse next door that her husband used to work at was attacked the same night her daughter showed up to visit.
Bruh, do you know what an actress does? Exactly what Jessie is doing.
A lot of people really rely on Jessie.
As a stagehand, though, right? You can be one of those anywhere. So why not come home and get a job at the Sector 8 theater?
I'll think about it.
And that includes their armor, which for all Jessie's mother knows are costumes. She could also find the incident at the Shinra warehouse nothing more than a mere coincidence.
While you're inside, we make sure the guards are focused on the outside, yeah?
Exactly. Couldn't have put it any better. When you see a flare go up, that's your cue.
Shooting flares to communicate is a good idea. Using flares to communicate during a robbery is not.
What the hell are you talking about? You don't think a bright explosion in the sky going off suddenly will distract the Shinra soldiers? Especially since they should be on alert because of the explosion of the #1 reactor?
The guard at the front gate has already been dealt with. We find out shortly after this that it was the main branch of Avalanche that killed him, which makes no sense. Why would Avalanche take out the entry guards, then leave, then return to launch their own attack several minutes later? And a warehouse is a pretty poor target for a large-scale attack like this.
I would give you the comment about the other Avalanche group, but we don't know exactly what they were doing here, and since you're wondering about it, I have to assume you don't know either. And I definitely have to disagree heavily about the warehouse being a poor target. A warehouse like this, I'm sure, has tons of materials that will suit Avalanche's needs.
Was the circulating fan really the trigger for Cloud's memory of his childhood promise to come to Tifa's rescue? The windmill doesn't even strike me as the strongest element of that night. Whatever the case, it's a terrible lead-in since Cloud wasn't even conflicted about helping Tifa.
You're seriously asking if that imagery caused him to remember this memory when that's literally what happens? Anyway, speaking from personal experience, you never know what memory is going to be triggered when and by what. Likely it's Cloud remembering his promise to Tifa.
Turn the key. The engine roars with excitement. It hungers to be set free!
I think Roach's big anime energy could serve as an alternative power source once all the Mako reactors are shut down.
Again with mispronouncing a character's name, but I'm getting a strange feeling of deja vu with this sin.
I actually said something similar in my video.
We really must do this again.
Someone needs to bottle this man's energy. You could literally power Midgar with Roche's hype and it would be 10 times stronger than Mako. And he deserves a send-off for making me laugh.
Well, holy shit.
Wait, where's Wedge? Wedge!
Wedge is expelled from the warehouse by something. It honestly should have been the Whispers considering how convenient it is. He's dropped unceremoniously into the scene after Jesse mentions him. The warehouse is surrounded by Shinra security, and he was in the middle of the fight between Avalanche and Shinra while the others snuck out.
So even though we don't see the Whispers at all involved in this chapter, yet we see many members of the other Avalanche group involved in this fight against Shinra soldiers. I mean, do I really need to point out the elephant in the room?
Your ass is fine. Maybe singed, but...
Shouldn't there be a bite mark on Wedge's ass? He was bit by a mutant dog, not shot.
And how exactly do you know he was bitten? Not only do we not see it explicitly happen, Jesse doesn't even mention that, instead saying his ass looks like it was slightly burned. I don't think gunfire would result in your ass looking like it was burned. And that's as far as I'm going with research for this particular sin.
How can Shinra security be this blind? The citizens behind the police have to see Avalanche sneaking by at the very least, and would likely say something. This town is made up of Shinra employee housing after all.
Neither the citizens nor every Shinra employee knows what Avalanche members look like to report to Shinra.
Swing by my place after, so I can pay you in full. Mind coming over tomorrow night? My roommates should all be out for a while.
Are you seriously that desperate?
This game is like the Cats of video games, where everything is hornier than usual for baffling reasons that only make sense to the directors.
Okay, first off, what do you mean by everything? Because I'm fairly certain Barrett, for instance, isn't horny for anyone in this game. Second, baffling reason that only makes sense to the directors? Is it impossible to consider the possibility that Cloud is an attractive man and therefore other individuals will be attracted to him as a result? Is that really too difficult to understand? And third, why the hell are you equating this to Cats of all things? Did you just want to include a pop culture reference? Because I think you did.
To ensure that destiny is preserved, the Whispers launch an assault on Tifa's bar to injure Jessie, so she'll have to send out the mission to be replaced by Cloud. This seems like something that could have been handled much more discreetly than swarming the place and attacking everyone when you're an invisible ghost. And for whatever reason, everyone can see the Whispers now. Whispers were invisible to Cloud until Aerith touched him. None of the others have come into contact with Aerith, yet they can see them just fine.
You almost had a good point here again, but there's a possible explanation as to why this happens. As you mentioned, Aerith is able to see the Whispers before Cloud, and a person can only see the Whispers once they come into contact with someone who can see them. The thing is, it's not specified that Aerith is the only person who can see them. This scene now implies that anyone who can see the Whispers can pass it on to someone else through physical contact, and Cloud, through one way or another, has come into contact with most of the characters in this scene. Think of it as some weird spiritual awareness virus. Also, calling Tifa Tifa again.
What's happening here? We ain't putting on a damn show!
Where were all the people who live in the slums during this attack? No one else was outside. The other residents are blind to Whispers, so they would have only seen Barrett, Cloud, and Tifa attacking empty space.
I'm sure the other residents of the slums were hiding or keeping their distance because Cloud, Tifa, Barrett, and Jessie were attacking empty air. Would you be outside roaming around if people were using battle-ready weapons like they were swatting at flies? And because this is the third fucking time you're mispronouncing Tifa's name, you're getting 5 cents from this point forth for every character mispronunciation. This shit's like your god-awful Devil May Cry 4 video.
The target's Mako Reactor 5. From the station, we take the back streets. Once we're inside the facility, it's the same deal as last time.
Laying low is a foreign concept to Barrett. Bombing another Mako reactor the day after you blew up one of them is asking for something to go wrong. Shinra will be on high alert now, with extra security at the remaining 7 reactors, and new ID checks on the train since they know Avalanche escaped using them. And with the Avalanche assault on a warehouse holding explosives the other night, they have to know another attack is coming.
The bombing of the 2 reactors are done days apart, not right after each other, genius. You're straight up lying.
Backup plans in case we had to get off early. From closer in to further out, B, C, D, and so on.
Up to what?
To E.
Is Plan F where you call off the mission due to Shinra obviously knowing where you are and what your target is?
No, Plan F is fuck this sin for making no sense to what Barrett is talking about. They have multiple backup plans to boost the likelihood of success.
Insufficient power.
Of course.
Hey guys, look at this. Instructions for dealing with a power shortage.
Kill the lights, and we free up power for the gate and other stuff.
Sun lamps. You think these are the plate suns?
To power a cargo elevator in the catwalk area, they need to shut off 4 gigantic sun lamps that light the slums below. The amount of power each one of these lamps would suck up would be more than enough to power everything in this area 10 times over.
So, you have the blueprints for this then. Do you mind sharing with the rest of the class? Oh, you don't have any proof. Then how do you know what's the exact power consumption of these sun lamps or the cargo elevator?
There is no way Cloud could draw his sword in that doorway on Biggs. When Cloud tried that on Marco, his sword hit the doorframe.
Since you didn't notice it even though you played it on screen, Cloud tried to draw his sword in an overhead style, which he likely didn't repeat before he made Biggs' stones drop. This is Cloud learning from that mistake from before.
These grappling guns closer. Secure them to your belt or whatever so you don't lose them. When we're done, we'll be using these babies to get down safe.
The plane is suspended 300 meters above the surface. A tiny grappling gun is not going to be capable of that distance. And what happened to parachutes? Those worked well the other night. And why didn't you use this escape plan for the previous reactor job?
Omega, how do you honestly have the patience for these multi-sins as you call them? This shit's too much to handle regularly.
Yo D, welcome to reason number 1 of why I don't recommend this line of work. But chill out, homie. I got this.
Go get him, Omega.
Now, to one of the masters of not paying attention, dude, it's highly unlikely that they're going to drop from here all the way down to the slums. and the mention of parachutes is pointless because this mission likely didn't call for a use for them, and that's beside the fact that Barrett was not even involved in that operation. As for your third question,
and why didn't you use this escape plan for the previous reactor job?
Who gives a damn? The escape route they all took in the first mission didn't call for grappling hooks. Different scenarios call for different methods.
Tifa's cleavage is only approved for use in flashbacks when she was a minor.
Dartigan is unaware of the cocktail and Shangsam dresses for Tifa.
How much time we need?
Got all the time in the world. This one comes with a remote detonator.
Just like last time, the bomb is only meant to destroy the Mako pump to disable the reactor. Why not blow it right now instead of waiting until you're out? Jesse even designed this bomb to be weaker.
Has this mofo ever heard of shrapnel? Also, Dartigan wants to be within reaching distance of an explosion. Just think about that for a second.
Where you going?
Weirdly perfect timing.
Don't you have grappling guns? Use them.
That's not a bad suggestion. However, they realize that Shinra is monitoring them, and troops are sent only a few seconds after the ladder's pulled up. So if they tried using the grappling guns, Shinra could use a different tactic to force Avalanche here to go where they want them to. Besides, this is the better option because it allows you to weaken the airbuster.
We played right into Shinra's hands.
And bring them to the command center right
and
now.
their bullshit news is already peddling their false narrative.
What part of it is bullshit exactly? You are bombing reactors, and Shinra being the governing authority is responsible for stopping you, and the ordinary citizens clearly don't support Avalanche's goal of shutting down the reactors.
And why is Avalanche trying to shut down the said reactors? I'm not surprised you're alright with lying by omission since you've done it in other videos. If the citizens knew how manufacturing Mako affected the planet, you really think they'd all be okay with that?
Listen, they want to turn this into a spectacle, then I say let's give them one. Let's take down Shinra's big-ass mech in front of everybody.
Shinra would almost certainly cut the feed if it looked like there was any chance of you defeating the airbuster.
That's a possibility, but I can see Shinra using video feeds like this in order to stir up propaganda to feed the people who buy their bullshit narrative.
Nature of Mako is known to one and all, yet the people willfully turn a blind eye to the costs.
President Shinra could just as easily be replaced with Skullface from Metal Gear Solid 5. Same voice actor, and even his lines feel like they are written for the same character.
Who the fuck is Skullface? Another pop culture reference that doesn't have shit to do with this game?
I got this, Omega. I know who he's talking about.
Alright, go for it, D.
I fail to see how President Shinra acts anything like Skullface. Skullface is out for revenge, and President Shinra wants power. Just because they share a voice actor doesn't mean their goals are remotely alike. Look at the Yuri Lowenthal sin.
Henceforth, allies of wicked Wutai, our sworn enemy. Thank you for stoking our people's patriotic fervor.
Wutai! The hell we are!
Biggs himself stated that the main Avalanche organization had cut a deal with Wutai. Barrett's Avalanche cell is an outlier without much to do with the main group, so it's entirely possible that this is true.
Holy shit, man. Listen to the words that come out of your mouth as well as what the characters actually say. Here you say,
Biggs himself stated that the main Avalanche organization had cut a deal with Wutai.
And you say that with certainty, but towards the end of this sin you say,
so it's entirely possible that this is true.
If you're going to point out a mistake, at least try and sound confident in what you're saying. Anyway, Biggs actually has more credibility than you do in this instance because this is what he actually says.
Word is, they cut a deal with Wutai. Promised them all the materia in Midgar, apparently. Think there's any truth to that?
You tell me.
Biggs is unsure of it, and that's better than you, who's just pretending to be sure.
And your instruments of insurrection will detonate. When we so choose. God damn it.
Does it really matter? You were planning on detonating that bomb anyways once you beat the airbuster. The bigger question is why did Shinra bother turning the bomb on when they know it won't destroy the entire reactor? They had to destroy the first reactor themselves after all.
The initial explosion probably wouldn't be enough to destroy the reactor, But I think, just maybe, that you would want to be as far away as possible from an explosion for a multitude of reasons. Also, Shinra is clearly trying to force Avalanche to stay as close as possible to the explosion.
Why does Heidegger set a 25-minute timer to detonate the bomb instead of 0? It's much easier to sell to the public the story that the Airbuster avenged a terrorist attack rather than failed to prevent an attack while fighting terrorists.
Heidegger set this timer because they want to show Avalanche being killed by the Airbuster. It kind of defeats the purpose of televising this if he just detonates the bomb. Shinra clearly underestimates Avalanche and what they can do, and sometimes showing is better than just saying, like how I show the evidence to back up my arguments.
God damn, the Airbuster fight is great though.
You see how much better these videos can be when you acknowledge greatness like I do.
Take Tifa and get out of here!
The game will never explain how Tifa and Barrett escape. I assume they use the grappling guns. However, if they use them from this location, they would have ended up in Sector 5 like Cloud does instead of Sector 7. And if their grappling guns can safely get them back down to the slums, so should Cloud's. But his runs out of cable after a few dozen meters.
The game does not, nor does it have to explain exactly how Tifa and Barrett escape. We see them later in the game, meaning that they escaped. As for the using the grappling guns in this location line, oh boy. Remember this scene?
Looks like it's gonna be Plan E.
Go on.
Plan A was if everything went off without a hitch. From the station, it would have been a straight shot to the reactor. Didn't work out, but we knew going in we had to have alternatives. Backup plans in case we had to get off early. From closer in to further out, B, C, D, and so on.
Up to what?
To E.
Lucky us.
Yeah!
While you were busy making a stupid joke with the lettering, you let this fact fly over your head. Barrett has backup plans in place, and this means he has more than one plan, which could take them through a different sector that brings them back to Sector 7.
The plate is suspended 300 meters above the surface. Cloud cuts at best a few hundred feet off that distance with a grappling gun. That would do nothing to save him from the fall, nor would landing in a flower bed cushion the impact. It could have been the whispers at work, but this fall was something that occurred in the original game. They wouldn't need to save Cloud here because it's happening as Destiny had laid out.
Dartigan doesn't seem to know shit about anime. Cloud is basically superhuman because of the experiments performed on him when he was captured by Hojo. Have you not seen any of the fights in Final Fantasy VII Advent Children?
This is...
an old church in the Sector 5 slums.
Who exactly was worshipped in this very Christian-looking church? Christianity doesn't exist on Gaia, with the only spirituality being planetology.
How the hell do you know that planetology is the only spirituality or religion in this fantasy video game? We have this church to serve as one example, and although we haven't seen Wutai yet, in the original game, there were hints of Buddhist imagery suggesting that as a religion in this clearly Asian-inspired region.
Sorry, I didn't mean to...
Don't worry about it. They're a lot tougher than they look.
Aerith claims those flowers are much stronger than they look even though Cloud just fell on them, but I saw one stomped in the opening cutscene.
Did you watch the scenes you played on the screen? Cloud falling on top of them might inconvenience the flowers, but they'll grab whatever nutrients they need since they're rooted in this church and grow naturally. Also, the flower from the opening got stepped on and it still started coming back up.
The whispers interfere to stop Cloud from killing Reno, meaning these things exist to make sure I have material to send by ensuring that only the most illogical events transpire even when the characters try to do the opposite.
Oh please, you send scenes that make perfect sense anyway. But with that fact aside, I remember you said this before.
The Whispers are a completely new and the biggest addition to the story of Final Fantasy VII, essentially being stand-ins for die-hard fans that want the plot to stay the same and follow the course it is supposed to follow, and they act to make sure events play out correctly.
So you already know this, and that this is the story this remake is trying to tell. So this sin is just a waste of time since you're telling us what material you're going to use to justify sinning this game.
We suspect the device used was similar to that employed in the attack on Mako Reactor 1. The perpetrators of that...
Scarlet was ambushed by a news crew for an interview about the reactor that was destroyed, and even though she hadn't planned a media presentation, she presses a button on her phone and somehow changes images in the live newsfeed.
Scarlet is an executive at Shinra, so she would know of any major plans Shinra has going on. She would be prepared for any media statement at any point, and considering a second reactor blew up within days of the first one, you'd have to be brain dead not to expect an interview.
Honestly, I'm much more worried about you. What if you get lost, huh? You'd be too embarrassed to admit it, and so you'd just keep on going.
This is Sector 5. Cloud needs to get back to Sector 7. Midgar is laid out like a pizza with numbered sectors. How hard could it be to find his way to Sector 7?
So let's say you get teleported and appear somewhere in the middle of Japan, but you have a map. Do you automatically know where the hell you're supposed to go to be where you need to be? Same concept here, man.
Then I invite you to ready your portable battle simulator.
Knowing how VR works, this Summon Materia sim must have had Cloud doing all the fighting in reality, meaning Cloud was running around the slums, swinging his sword and casting spells while everyone else tried to stay out of his way.
This VR system in a video game I'm sure doesn't work the way you described. However, the mental images of Cloud wildly swinging his sword and running around while the population runs for the hills made me laugh harder than expected. So I'm gonna cut you a break and remove a sin.
Not him. It looks pretty damn similar.
There's the number, but why 2?
A cloaked man just like Marco appears in Sector 5. All of them dressing in the same wardrobe despite being out of their minds is a big enough coincidence. But all of them tearing their robe in the same place so the number on their shoulder is on display is an even greater one.
Dartigan has never heard of cults.
Rude is only here to pick a fight with Cloud. With the importance Shinra places on Aerith later, they really seemed unconcerned with her at this point, considering that she's hanging out with one of the known members of Avalanche that they tried to kill last night.
You just love cutting scenes that make a semblance of sense just to then say the game made a mistake, don't you? The likely reason that Rude is picking a fight with Cloud is said before the boss fight starts.
Wait a minute. Those eyes. Is he the one who beat up Reno?
And what if I am?
Need to cross my T's, dot my I's, that's all.
Cell phones are something Avalanche should be using. Cloud could contact them and let them know he's alive. And later, Tifa could call Barrett and tell him Shinra's plan to draw the plate on Sector 7.
Hey, genius. Cell phones can be tracked. I guess you didn't follow my advice from my last video about that brain transplant.
Judging by those eyes, I'm guessing you're a soldier.
Aerith's mom should not only recognize Cloud as a soldier by his eyes, she should also recognize the sword he's carrying as Zack's, Aerith's former boyfriend.
I'm sorry, D. I have to jump on this one. Look, everyone, if you're familiar with Final Fantasy VII lore, you'll automatically know what's wrong with this sin. I'll present it as a question. How well does Elmira know Zack that she'll recognize the iconic Buster Sword? And for those not familiar with the lore, here's the answer. They never even met in the original story.
I know a better way to get to Sector 7. One that, tragically, doesn't go through Wall Market.
Aerith's better way to Sector 7 is far longer and more dangerous than the one that goes right past Wall Market.
Dartigan thinks that uncontrolled monsters are less dangerous than Don Corneo.
Doing crimes? I'd say we're owed compensatory damages. Composite. I don't get it.
Even though some of the comedy in this game can induce eye rolls, I appreciate the return of it. The past couple Final Fantasy games have been far too serious to their own detriment.
I'll remove another sin here, but I have a sneaking suspicion I'm gonna regret this one whenever I cover another Final Fantasy game you've already made a video about.
Wow. Your eyes.
Oh. It's 'cause of the Mako. All soldiers have them.
Yeah, I know.
Rather than Cloud's eyes, shouldn't you be asking what he's doing carrying around your former boyfriend's sword?
First off, how dare you send this scene? Secondly, it's a sword. There isn't enough evidence suggesting it's the only one of its kind.
Don't worry. I have a backup route for emergencies, and it's safer too.
Why didn't you take that route here instead of the one that required you to fight bandits and monsters and use giant robot arms across obstacles?
This one I'm not completely sure about, but here goes. I suspect that Aerith is lying about a secret backup route, The fact that there's no other route the player can take, and this scene suggests that.
You gonna be okay getting home?
And if I said I wasn't?
I'll go with you.
I thought you needed to get back. Don't worry. I have a backup route for emergencies, and it's safer too.
She could be teasing Cloud since he shows concern for her well-being, and once he offers to go out of his way to see her home, Aerith instead lies to him so he doesn't have to do that.
Uncanny eyesight on that boy.
Cloud and Tifa grew up together, dingus. I'm pretty sure he would easily be able to recognize her, which this scene demonstrates.
I'll be fine. You've seen how much ass I can kick?
You don't know Corneo. It doesn't matter how strong or smart you think you are. He'll find a way to turn it against you.
Aerith makes Don Corneo out to be much more dangerous than he ends up being.
That in no way means that Don Corneo isn't dangerous. Did you not pay close attention to the character and what he does and is capable of?
Well, I get a lot of customers. Hard to keep track of them all. This girl, what's she look like?
Wouldn't it be easier to ask for the name of the girl Cloud is looking for that you give a ride to than a description?
It's highly unlikely that Sam would bother asking for the name of who he's ferrying for Don Corneo. Also, assuming he ferries multiple people a day, he's more likely to recognize someone from their looks rather than their name.
If you're really sure you want to join an audition, then you're gonna need to get official approval.
And who can give us that?
The trio. The only ones in town who are considered authorities on Corneo's particular tastes.
Don Corneo is selecting a new wife, and the trio, the three big business leaders in Wall Market, are each responsible for nominating a different girl for the audition. Chocobo Sam nominated Tifa. Meanwhile, Madam M and Andrea, the other two members of the trio, have nominated no one, and don't seem like they have any plans to do so on the night of the audition, meaning Tifa would have been selected by default had Cloud and Aerith not gotten involved.
You know, I'm sure I wouldn't have gotten all of that without you pointing that out for me, so thanks. Also, how exactly do you know that Madam M and Andrea weren't planning on nominating someone? Were you one of the writers involved in this project?
I would expect a 3,000 gil hand massage to cover both hands.
The scene faded after Cloud's climax, so we never actually saw if the other hand was massaged or not. Are you saying you would rather watch the entire massage? Because I'm pretty sure you'd complain the game has time for this.
So, the two of you are a team? Team? No, it's just me.
Yes, the two of us are a team. I need to get into that audition, but I won't let anyone else fight my battles for me.
Getting the hell beat out of you in a fighting tournament hours before the audition isn't going to improve your chances.
Says you. This is a video game, remember? Besides, Cloud and Aerith beating the hell out of their opponents would easily remedy that problem.
How many double-sided coins does Chocobo Sam carry on him? He gave one to Cloud after Cloud lost the coin toss for his audition approval. There's having a tool for the right occasion, and then there's forcing your one gag on everyone.
How is Sam's shtick a sin? If he has a habit of using a double-sided coin, then why wouldn't he have another one? Seriously, where's the actual sin? Characterization is not a goddamn sin.
The Don's demanding that we tack on one more match, it seems.
What?
If they win out, then you get paid in full.
Since Corneo is paying so much attention to his tournament, he should definitely recognize Aerith and Cloud later when they show up in his mansion. They even fight under their real names.
Fucking hell, man! A character's mistake is not a problem with the storytelling. Corneo, by the way, is probably only paying attention to the tournament to make a fortune. This scene with Madam M suggests as such.
The crowd loved your show a little too much. People were placing hefty bets. Much heftier than you can possibly imagine. Corneo's going to milk this for as much as he can.
Meaning what?
You face and defeat Corneo's fighter of choice, and only then will you be declared winners of the tournament.
Hey, that wasn't the deal!
Don't you think I know that? Ah! You greedy bastard! Scum-sucking piece of shit-festering asshole! But that's the way it is. Corneo's the one who makes the rules around here. But if you win this match, Corneo will have to accept your victory.
If you were going to drag out a section of the original game by adding a fighting tournament to it, you better go all out for the final round, and the Hell House qualifies.
Dartigan recognizes greatness and removes a sin, so we will do the same.
If you're sure you want to go through with this, then bring the girl and the letter. But if I were you, I wouldn't.
Leslie somehow keeps his job as Don Corneo's right-hand man when he tries his best to undermine the audition right in front of the other gang members.
He did something similar earlier with the same two henchmen when you first arrive at the Don's mansion, and Corneo still trusted Leslie based on the scene they share in Chapter 14. Therefore, this suggests to me that even though Leslie is saying this in front of these two particular henchmen, they're on Leslie's side.
Johnny prepared a fireworks show and red carpet for Aerith's dress reveal, which is a few minutes' notice.
Oh hell no! Not only are you sinning this scene, you're sinning it while Aerith is wearing her best dress. I'm afraid that shit's worth a lot.
But those who crave my favor must first prove that they know how to move.
Andrea may want to make Cloud pretty and put on a good show, but he should know very well that traps are not Don Corneo's cup of tea. So giving Cloud his audition endorsement after dressing him up means he's possibly putting his life on the line.
Or, here's an idea. Andrea is doing it for the lulz, which is perfectly within his character.
Choreography like this takes weeks of practice. Cloud can apparently improvise and follow along perfectly because of soldier training.
You did not just sin one of the arguably best parts of the game. I, like many others I'm sure, were worried they would censor or tone down this part of the game, and wow, they delivered. For sinning this part of the game, I think I'm gonna match Omega and give you another 50.
I recall that Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett were broadcast all in Midgar while fighting the Airbuster. Shouldn't someone in this audience recognize Cloud?
Really? Where the hell is that said scene where the fight against the Airbuster was broadcasted? Because during the interview with Scarlet, the footage shown wasn't even the fight against the Airbuster.
I guess I have to remove a sin for Square Enix not chickening out and removing this scene and instead going all out to make it even better.
See, even you admit the scene was great, so why would you nitpick something like this? Regardless, we'll go ahead and remove a sin for recognizing the greatness of the scene.
What's that weird, sweet smell? And why do I feel so dizzy?
Gas.
Why gas the girls who are here for the audition, then drag them into a dungeon only to bring them back upstairs for Don Corneo to look over? They were already here for the audition. This only adds unnecessarily hostile and creepy steps to the process.
And here we have a new cliche born. Dartigan answers his own question cliche.
None of Don Corneo's men realized Cloud was a man as they dragged his unconscious body downstairs.
Would you want to unnecessarily grope/touch a mob boss's potential wife? Kinda seems like a death wish if you ask me.
Cloud? Is that you? Oh my god, that makeup! And that dress!
Nailed it, I know, thank you. Moving on.
Tifa didn't recognize Cloud until he started talking. He already looked like a woman before he put the dress on.
What's your point? This clearly shows how good the disguise is that Tifa had to get a very close look at Cloud in drag to realize who she really was looking at.
After we made it back to the slums, some guys came around asking all kinds of questions. So I did some digging.
And found out they were Corneo's men.
Right. They were interested in Avalanche. But I couldn't figure out why. So I thought I'd come and ask the man himself.
Was finding out why Don Corneo was looking for Avalanche the biggest concern after Shinra used you as a pretense for starting a war with Wutai? Or looking for Cloud after he fell off the plate?
While finding out why Shinra was trying to frame them, or looking for Cloud may have been more important, it's very possible that finding out what Corneo knew was the only thing Tifa had a lead on.
You look kind of familiar. We haven't met before, have we?
How do you forget the champions of the arena that you MC'd just hours ago?
Dartigan doesn't know shit about makeup and disguises.
What was that?
Don't you worry your pretty little head. Just a picture to preserve the moment.
Cloud doesn't even attempt to hide his male voice and still no one catches on.
There wouldn't be much use in disguising his voice by now, since the whole point was to interrogate him, and I'd say being in his bedroom is about as close as they're comfortably gonna get.
Andrea filled me in on the situation.
What exactly did Andrea fill you in on? Cloud and Aerith never shared their reason for wanting to get into the audition, and why would Andrea turn on the Dawn now over any other time he's been complicit in sending women to the Dawn?
Leslie was informed about the fact that Cloud went undercover. And way to pay attention as usual. I shouldn't be surprised how you miss how Andrea and Madam M both seemed to have particular dislike towards Don Corneo and therefore had no qualms about conspiring against him.
I always figured Cloud could use the Buster Sword due to being a super soldier, but if someone like Leslie can hold it up with one hand no problem, then anyone could. I've seen YouTube videos where people make a real-life Buster Sword, and in every example, it takes 2 people to lift it and let gravity do the swing.
There is a world of difference between being able to use the Buster Sword and hold it up. Also, you're looking too much into a fantasy video game. Real-life physics probably won't apply when you can stop time with the magic orb.
Aerith's dress cost 1 million gil. The least she could do is keep it to sell later. Also, where did Leslie get Tifa's normal outfit from? Tifa came from Sector 7 wearing that dress, unlike Cloud and Aerith who changed in Madame M's and the Honeybee Inn.
Dude, it's absolutely pointless to apply all of these logistics to this scene. They're all on a mission for starters, so Aerith carrying that dress would slow them down, not to mention the next area takes the party through the sewers. And Tifa could have had her clothes secretly stashed somewhere. You're honestly better off just suspending your disbelief about this fantasy video game rather than grasp at straws.
Since Avalanche blew up 2 reactors, Shinra's decided they ought to stamp them out, home base and all. And I mean stamp out. By targeting the support pillar and blowing it up.
Why would Shinra tell Don Corneo about the plan to drop the plate? And this time, their plan doesn't require them to drop the plate on Avalanche to destroy the group like in the original game. In this game, they want to blame the destruction on Avalanche and Wutai as further pretense for war. Shinra could drop any one of the plates and achieve the same result.
Hey Omega, do you have an ice pick?
Why, man?
I need to stab out my fucking eardrums after hearing all that nonsense. Anyway, Don Corneo knows because he was paid to find Barrett. Granted, he's not as big as Shinra, but Corneo is powerful in the slums and likely he wouldn't do business with them unless he knew why. Also, once again, Dartigan answers his own question cliché. Shinra is dropping the plate because Avalanche is there. Dropping any other plate wouldn't make sense if they are trying to get rid of Avalanche, who are based in Sector 7. Also, that is exactly what happened in the original game. The only difference being Wutai is involved now.
Don Corneo could have dropped them through the trapdoor while Cloud was changing. All 3 of them were standing on it during that.
So you're a man, huh? What are you 3 up to?
We'll ask the questions.
Just FYI, it's extremely easy to make these retorts when the game itself can contradict what you say. And by the way, the lever for the trapdoor is over here, which wasn't within Corneo's reach for him to flip it conspicuously enough before Cloud and the others could react.
Please, Mr. President, I am asking you to reconsider. No, begging. The Sector 7 Undercity is home to more than 50,000...
Director Twisty.
I've always been curious about how Reeve keeps his job at Shinra. He's clearly not on the same page as the rest of the executives and has a conscience. You would think he would be fired or resigned in disgust after the company he works for conducted human experimentation and commits an act of terrorism against his own people.
For starters, Reeve has a conscience, not conscious. Dude, if you're going to send someone for being akin to Jiminy, you'd better not get your words mixed up. You have over 460,000 people who have watched this. Pick up a dictionary when typing out your sins. Now, with that nitpick out of the way, Reeve is likely good at his job, that's why he hasn't been booted out of Shinra yet. Even if he doesn't mesh with the rest of the executives, he knows what he's doing and it would take a lot of time and money to find his replacement. As for why he hasn't resigned, he wants to do good with his position, unlike a channel that rhymes with Schmartigan.
Of all the things to extend, they made the sewer level even longer.
Dartigan sins expanded areas, and I'm gonna pause for a moment so I can also let this compute. In a remake.
But what if Corneo really was telling the truth? We have to get there in time to stop it. We have to.
Right.
What are you not telling me?
Some fans are upset over how this game ends, but I can appreciate how clever the writing is throughout with little hints like this one that Aerith clearly knows all this has happened before. However, considering Aerith is determined to change destiny this time, she waits until all the tragic stuff has occurred before actively trying to change the way events go down.
First off, Dartigan sends something he likes cliché. Second, Aerith may not know the extent of the damage if she changes anything. It's never explicitly stated that Aerith knows exactly what's going to happen, but instead has flashes of what could happen.
Most of the weight they're holding up is Cloud's sword.
I got a legit hearty chuckle from this. You earned a sin off.
I guess those things can't climb ladders.
That's a sin how? If they aren't climbing a ladder, clearly they can't.
Ghosts aren't my thing.
You're just being modest.
These three act terrified of ghosts when they've all encountered the Whispers, which for all intents and purposes look exactly like ghosts.
The Whispers and the ghosts featured in this game are not the same. Don't get it twisted, homie. And you're not about to tell me that the Eligor, who is a ghostly enemy, looks exactly like a Whisper.
Don't!
It's not like Cloud can, kill it again? It's a ghost.
So apparently Dartigan is a paranormal expert. I better see you make a cameo in the next Paranormal Activity movie then.
Run!
Don't bother running until the train that's being controlled by ghosts is right over your head and falling.
Dartigan doesn't understand that there are certain scenes shown for the benefit of the audience. Cloud didn't wait until the very last minute to tell everyone to get away from the train car. That is just a misconception on your part.
Separation code is...
Not only do these broken down trains in the train graveyard still function, their radios are working and tuned to the same frequency the Turks are using.
Just because some of those trains are not operable doesn't mean that all of these trains are inoperable. The same thing applies to the equipment. And for your information, the AAR which operates throughout all of North America have a setup for the 90 plus frequencies under the 160 to 161 megahertz band. What I mean is, the train scanner picking up this message from the helicopter in their vicinity is not a major stretch.
How did Barrett learn about the pillar plan if Tifa never got the information back to him? All the Turks had to do was land on the pillar and enter the separation code and the job was done. I can't see any way Barrett figured out what they were up to in time to reach the pillar before them to try to defend it.
Tifa may not have gotten the information to him, but it's possible that Barrett got that intel from another source. But another likely fact is that the tower for this pillar isn't far from 7th Heaven, and the area around the pillar is usually well populated. A commotion could have started here, and word reached Barrett.
I suppose the Whispers appear to slow down Cloud and the group so they don't reach the pillar in time, but this seemed to be going in the same direction as the original game anyway, so I don't think this is anything more than padding by throwing a repeated boss fight at the player.
Notice how Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith have arrived just in time to see Wedge being knocked off the pillar? Did that not happen in the original game as well? The Whisper's intervention means that if they arrive sooner, then these events could have happened differently.
I guess the Whispers must have forgotten this moment from the original game, because Wedge was supposed to die after falling off the pillar. This time he survives and they don't intervene to keep Destiny on course.
While I appreciate you pointing out the inconsistency of the Whisper's actions in this game, and reasons like that are why I feel tacking them onto the story of Final Fantasy VII was unnecessary, I feel I should remind you that this is a remake. Even without the Whispers, we've seen changes to the original story up to this point.
Biggs wanted to feel that glossy anime boy hair just once.
That's cringe, but it made me laugh, so I'll remove a sin.
There's a bar in the center of town, 7th Heaven. I need you to
get Marlene to safety, right?
You don't think we're gonna stop them from dropping the blade, do you?
Daddy too? You mean Barrett?
This would be a case where I make fun of the game by claiming Aerith has already read the script, since she has no idea who Marlene is and has never heard Barrett's name before.
And I'm gonna stop you right there, because what you're saying is, again, bullshit. Let's roll that footage to prove you don't know what you're talking about.
We're through.
Great. Let's head outside. Wait.
A girl?
Marlene?
And the kids that the Black Wind carries away have to live in the train graveyard forever and ever. So you have to stay far, far away from there.
Marlene, what are you? We can't waste any more time here.
What was that about?
Nothing you need to worry about. Let's get going.
What you got? Come on!
That's Barrett!
Also, that weird transition of scenes you use for this sin are getting extra sins from me.
Since Barrett went out to stop the plate from falling, why didn't he see to Marlene's safety before that? He could have at least made her stay in the underground avalanche base beneath the bar.
Dartigan doesn't know shit about parenting. Why would you tell a child to hide underground? In this instance, things do go south, and if Marlene were trapped underground, it's likely that she would be trapped or killed since only a handful of people would know the secret location of the underground base.
Sung's heir would only be business professional in the Ming Dynasty.
Mentioning the Ming Dynasty in a fantasy video game developed by a Japanese company. That's racist. And what the hell is this over here?
There's the good old waifu catch that's in every Final Fantasy game. I was waiting for that to show up.
How is that a sin? If long-standing jokes or references are sin-worthy, then buddy, do I have some bad news for you.
That chopper had Jessie in its sights for the entire time she looked at it, slowly kissed, primed, and threw a grenade at it, and never fired on her. No wonder it took the Whisper's intervention to kill her.
Though I can't hold it against the pilot for possibly missing the small grenade in Jessie's hand from that distance, and therefore not having enough time to assess the situation and properly react, the part about not shooting has us in agreement.
You're next, asshole!
Instead of aiming at the chopper, Barrett should aim at Reno while he tries to activate the console to drop the plate on Sector 7.
Why would Barrett focus on Reno? He has a machine gun attached to his arm, making him the best person suited for the job, while Cloud and Tifa focus on Reno.
Sorry, losers. Gotta play for keeps today. No time to dick around.
He says before digging around by fighting Cloud instead of hitting the button.
Come on, man. If you're so confident about this lie, then why didn't you show the scene of Reno literally being interrupted by Cloud, preventing the start of the plate separation mechanism?
Sorry, losers. Gotta play for keeps today. No time to dick around.
Plate separation authorized. Awaiting confirmation. Plate separation authorized. Awaiting confirmation.
Yeah, coming right up. No, you don't! Not when I'm working!
Plate separation authorized. Awaiting confirmation.
You can get away with fooling your audience on your channel, but best believe someone is gonna call you out on your bullshit sooner than later.
Barrett shut the hell out of this terminal after Root activated the plate separation sequence, yet it still works just fine and even lets Sung contact them over it.
If it's showing that it works, then clearly Barrett didn't deplete the computer's HP to 0.
Why did Sung even feel the need to contact them? He just says this, then Aerith interrupts to tell them she got Marlene to safety. As far as Sung is concerned, these three are doomed anyway.
Sung is basically rubbing their intended doom in their faces. No surprise that you don't get it.
Not only does the zip line lead all the way from the top of the pillar to a completely different sector, it stays taut even as one of the anchors collapses into the ground. It should go slack and fall straight down while they are still on it.
Again, if it's showing that it's happening, then it likely didn't collapse or go slack like you stated it should. Quit putting your real-world logic in a fantasy video game.
After surviving the pillar, Wedge went back to Sector 7 to save Cats, not more people. He also survives this, meaning the Whisper's screwed up twice when it comes to killing him.
Oh god, you and your blind-ass assumptions. Tell me something, how the f*** do you know he didn't try and save more people before he focused on saving his cats? Also, to me, The whispers surrounding Wedge here indicate that they had something to do with him surviving.
Kate Sith gets a cameo here even though it makes no sense. Why would Reeve even be controlling it right now? There is nothing Reeve could accomplish as Kate Sith in regards to the plate falling.
Sinning Kate Sith. We've already established this is a different storyline from the original, so him showing up earlier isn't necessarily a sin, same as Sephiroth showing up sooner than before. However, Kate Sith was created to act as Reeve's proxy. Likely he's surveying the damage that's been caused from a safe distance.
Marlene! Marlene!
I guess Barrett wasn't listening when Aerith said she got Marlene out.
Nice way of trying to manipulate the scene in question, but I guess a pathological liar can't help themselves as usual. Here's the scene and listen to the dialogue.
What do we do?
Nothing. There is nothing you can do now.
You can't do this!
Eva! I saw Marlene!
Aerith!
Marlene? My Marlene? What did you do with her?
Where are you?
Biggs! Wedge! Jesse! God damn it! God damn you!
That being said, Barrett is easily one of the best characters in the game and owns this moment so hard I'm removing a sin.
Dartigan again recognizes greatness and removes a sin, so it's fair to do the same.
I thought maybe they'd run away from Wall Market, or that they were topsiders fallen on hard times.
Sepia tone shouldn't be used for flashbacks unless we are talking about something that happened a very long time ago, not just a couple years. We've seen flashbacks to Cloud and Tifa's childhood and those were in color.
Says fucking who? You? Who the hell died and made you authority on who decides on filters for specific flashbacks for style and creativity? And for the record, a couple of years does not compare to 15, which was when Elmira first met Aerith.
Take Aerith somewhere safe. Those were her mother's dying words.
Aerith's mom died of tragic backstory disease.
And that's a sin how? As you pointed out, the majority of Final Fantasy characters have dead parents. Writing characters and stories the way they want to isn't a sin.
I know of Asian aging, but Sung has not aged a day for an entire decade.
That's a legit head-scratching observation you point out here. I could forgive this in the original, but this remake in 2020 isn't slipping this under my nose and not getting called out for it. But check this out also.
Sepia tone shouldn't be used for flashbacks unless we are talking about something that happened a very long time ago, not just a couple years. I know of Asian aging, but Sung has not aged a day for an entire decade.
So you did acknowledge this happened more than a couple of years ago. 5 sins for inconsistency.
You know you're not just any little girl. You're a descendant of the ancients.
I had no idea what he meant, so I said, "Who are the ancients?"
I demand you explain very classified intel on the most important thing your company is involved in. Sung actually complies.
They need Aerith's cooperation, so wouldn't it benefit Shinra to give Elmira any important details about Aerith since she's taking care of her to help understand and keep her happy? Plus, it's not like Elmira is going to go around telling everybody that she's an ancient.
They knew where she was, but they didn't just take her? Doesn't sound like the Turks I know.
She had to come willingly, otherwise it wouldn't work, they said.
Which makes no sense and is just the game trying to paper over a plot hole that's been in existence for over 20 years. Shinra certainly had no qualms about taking Aerith and her mom by force from their original home.
Yo, did you not listen to what Elmira said? Aerith basically has to willingly cooperate in order for Shinra to be able to learn what they need to know in the search of the Promised Land. I know that Shinra made a more forceful attempt with Ifalna after Aerith was born, but it seems pretty obvious that plan backfired. With Aerith being the last Cetra alive, Shinra are likely playing it safe.
So she can lead us to the Promised Land?
Well, Mr. President, that remains to be seen. I would like your permission to secure her cooperation through more forceful means. Forceful, yet gentle. She is a precious resource that must be handled with care.
Personally, I've never had a problem with torture.
My armory is at your disposal should you require anything.
I had something more psychological in mind. Better to scar the psyche than mar the flesh.
Proceed as you see fit. However, you will not make the same mistake twice. Is that clear?
Let's head back to Sector 7. Got things to take care of. Like checking up on the bar.
Let's drag this game out even more by doing something completely pointless.
For the characters, it wouldn't be pointless to check out their base as well as check on the citizens who may have escaped and need further assistance. For the player, it wouldn't be pointless since this fleshes out the game further. Their characterization isn't a sin, goddammit. What is pointless is your sin.
Wedge somehow survived because a hole opened up underneath of him into a secret Shinra bioweapons lab under the slums, and he also somehow fell through several long stairwells and around a corner inside of it to end up here. It's a miracle, I tell you.
Once again, I'm in total agreement with you, and this was one of my gripes with this game. Wedge's miraculous survival aside, I know remakes can change a few things around, but I feel this change was unnecessary. Wedge, Biggs, and Jesse should have been left to die in the pillar as far as I'm concerned.
The floor collapses under the party, yet they all end up separated in completely different areas.
They simply could have been separated mid-fall and could have awakened at different times. This isn't the only video game to ever pull this trope.
Somehow Wedge fell through that same floor the party fell through, even though the cutscene didn't show it, and he fell even further into the facility than the others, and there was no hole in the ceiling from which he could have fallen from. It's another miracle.
Yo, what are you talking about, Magoo Jr.? This is the same room where they first found Wedge. You can see the hole where Barrett and the others fell through right here. The kind of lazy-ass nitpicking is this? How is it more people don't call you out on this?
You stupid!
Barrett puts Wedge on the other side of the closing shutter and joins Tifa when they both could have avoided fighting the mutants by joining Wedge on the other side of the closing shutters.
Nice way of trying to manipulate a scene again. Too bad for you that we won't let that shit slide. Roll the tape, Omega.
Okay, let's go.
Sure. Yep, it's you, all right.
What is this? Barrett!
I don't think we need to explain to our audience how this easily debunks your sin.
The Whispers appear this time to carry Cloud, Barrett, and Tifa out of the research facility. On top of maintaining Destiny, they also serve as quick travel out of a dungeon. Weirdly, they also carry Wedge out with them, someone who was supposed to have died back at the pillar.
Thanks for pointing out what happened on the screen and the plot synopsis on Wedge's fate in the 97 original. Still waiting on why exactly this is a sin. Since you gave no specifics, sin on you.
This scene can change depending on the choices you've made in the game, allowing Cloud to have a personal moment with Tifa, Barrett, or Aerith. I got Aerith's scene, where she somehow projects an image of herself to talk to Cloud. You can bet your ass this helpful ability will never come up again.
If you end up getting the Aerith scene, it's never explicitly stated what exactly was going on, whether it be astral projection or dream. Either way, this ability wouldn't be useful in any other scenario other than potentially in battle, and that's not an ability she had before.
But whatever happens, you can't fall in love with me.
That's coming from a girl who gave Cloud a flower symbolizing lovers reuniting right after meeting him, and then promised Cloud a date after meeting him again in the church.
Yes, Aerith did that at first, but throughout the game it's implied that Aerith has been seeing events of the future and is trying to change their destinies. So now, she's saying this as opposed to catapulting herself at Cloud, Jesse style.
What brings you back here?
Well, we need to find a way to get topside as quickly as possible. And we figured Corneo ought to know one.
I would think that Avalanche would have alternate ways of getting topside over Don Corneo's information. They are the organization that would most likely be in need of secret routes, seeing as they break the law and would be wanted men.
There's a couple of reasons they may be going through Corneo rather than Avalanche. First, they are a rogue cell of Avalanche, not part of the main group, so it may be easier to go through Corneo, much to their chagrin. Second, there is an entire sector that had a plate fall on it. Avalanche may be a little too busy for the main cast's personal mission.
There was no ladder installed in Don Corneo's trapdoor the other night when he dropped Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith through it, and I don't think Leslie had the time to install one himself.
You may not think Leslie or anyone else had the time to install it, but quite some time has passed since Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith romped through the sewers, and we're now seeing a ladder installed here. Also,
and I don't think Leslie had the time to install one himself.
Dartigan doesn't follow his own script cliché.
We gotta catch him! Huh? He took the key to the door!
The only thing worse than a sewer level is being forced to repeat that very same sewer level.
Game developers reuse assets all the time, so if that's something that you have a problem with, then you might not want to keep playing video games, especially from the same franchise.
Leslie's fiancée became one of Don Corneo's girls and disappeared 6 months ago. To get his revenge on Corneo, Leslie acted as Don Corneo's right-hand man, and then spent all that time helping other girls get taken by Corneo, never enacting his revenge despite having Corneo's trust. There had to be times when he was alone with Corneo before now.
It always gets me how you nitpick these scenes as if you have the undisputed certainty that things could have happened the way you say it. Has there ever been a point where you didn't know what you were talking about? Or are you fucking perfect? Anyway, Leslie may have been one of Corneo's most trusted lackeys, but Leslie may have simply wanted to wait for the ideal opportunity to exact his revenge and make a clean getaway. I'd say what happens to the Don after he divulges the details of the plate drop, forcing him to then go into hiding, is the perfect cover for Leslie to enact his plan, since he could then use the fact that Shinra is hunting Corneo as a way of subverting suspicion.
Well, that was pathetic. Do you think he knows that guns work from a distance?
Leslie probably didn't want to miss his shot. Besides, since Leslie went through so much and it had little payoff, I'm sure he wants to take the personal satisfaction to take the Don out execution style.
The plate stunt was meant to be an unprecedented tragedy, claiming countless innocent lives. But those naughty little kittens organized an evacuation and screwed up the plan.
There is no way that wasn't a tragedy. Aerith and Wedge managed to evacuate a lot of people out of the slums, but all the people who lived on top of the plate had no warning at all, and would have also died when the plate fell.
Fucking hell, man. How do you know there was no warning given? Were you actually there? If you have the means to teleport yourself into these video game worlds, please share those details. Now, as heartless, power-hungry, and greedy as Shinra is, that idea you presented is surprisingly ambiguous based on what the game tells us. We never get an exact count of casualties after the plate collapse or explicitly see people die in this sequence as opposed to the 97 original. I'm sure that people did die in this game because of the plate collapse, but this game beats around the bush as opposed to 97.
Cloud waited a real long time before intervening to save Leslie.
He may have been waiting for the right time to attack Corneo, rather than risk his or Leslie's life unnecessarily.
Repeat it, boss fight, boss fight.
Repeating a boss in this series is extremely common, so this is another weak sin.
This room connects to a much quicker and easier route to Don Corneo's hidey hole here in the alley. Why didn't Leslie take this path instead of the trap door?
Dartigan has never heard of a door being locked, especially with someone of Don Corneo's status. Not really much of a hidey hole if it's easily accessed.
Grappling guns. You can practically fly with the souped-up motors on these babies.
Leslie's way up to the top plate doesn't strike me as being reliable. He gives them grappling guns to get over the Sector 7 wall, and from there they'll have to hope the rebel will offer them something to climb up the rest of the way.
So what the hell is your point? Yes, Avalanche has to travel up these ruined sections in order to progress, and all Leslie could offer as far as assistance are the grappling hooks. I'm all ears if you have a better idea.
Earlier, I mentioned how on point this game was with presentation. Well, this area is the exception, using a crusty two-dimensional background image for all the destruction that is supposed to overwhelm you. At times, it gets so bad you would be forgiven for thinking you're looking at one of the background images from the original game.
Do you really want Square Enix to render individual buildings for a skybox? Honestly, it's like you want this game to run like ass. You can't go to that area now, and unless you have a habit of looking at skyboxes for too long, it's not a huge deal if they make the skybox have a tad less quality than what's right in front of you.
At least have them lie flat so I can partially suspend my disbelief.
So that's where your disbelief ends? Never mind Barrett's gun arm with infinite ammo. That's where your disbelief ends.
The reception desk.
Yeah, but how to get in?
Pretty sure we could reach it if we hop across those lights.
I've seen Cloud easily jump higher than that reception desk wall, and they all have grappling guns. Why have Tifa jump and swing across light fixtures to get inside?
It's a way to have you play as every main character in the game with their own dedicated sections. This section helps to show how nimble, strong, and athletic Tifa is. Besides, it helps break up the gameplay from being monotonous.
Remind me again why Tifa had to cover up her cleavage if Scarlet gets to have even more than she did in the original.
Dude, what the flying f*** are you talking about? Scarlet's design in the original game looked like this, and Tifa's cleavage was all covered up in the original game. You can thank the much improved graphics for, according to you, somehow giving Scarlet more cleavage as opposed to in reality, the graphics just showing off more of what she's always had.
Barrett, Tifa, and Cloud have been broadcast all over Midgar as terrorists that destroyed 2 reactors and brought a plate down, but no one inside Shinra HQ, the very place you think they would have to be recognized, pays them any attention. Even if they weren't wanted criminals, I think a guy with a sword as big as he is and another guy with a gun for an arm would warrant attention.
I can't speak much for Tifa and Barrett, but Cloud still looks like a soldier. He even gets recognized a bit later, and no alarms are raised. Also, Mayor Domino is working behind the scenes to make sure the alarms aren't raised.
Judging by the virtual reality display on the Cetra, Shinra would be better at making a Final Fantasy game than Square Enix. Sephiroth isn't just a legendary soldier, he's also skilled in the use of Adobe Premiere and Photoshop, because he hijacks the VR tour to show the meteor crashing into Midgar.
Omega, how is it you do this without getting trashed again?
D, I don't recommend anyone to get into this line of work. If I took a shot of anything, every time I hear bullshit like this, my liver would be so black and shriveled you could substitute charcoal for it. Anyway, you take care of the rest of the sin. I do need a drink now.
Alright, back to the sin. Did you forget that magic exists in this fantasy game? Likely it's a hallucination, not Sephiroth spending hours reprogramming a VR for the lulz. I'm pretty sure video editing isn't a standard course when they go through soldier training.
Why would the mayor of Midgar's office be hidden behind a secret door? And the hidden library door leads into an identical gigantic library like the one they just came from. No way are you hiding that inside the building plans.
Ugh, Jesus. First, dude, it makes all the sense that the mayor has a hidden room because even back in the original game, he helped Cloud, Barrett, and Tifa. The context will make a lot more sense in the next sin. Were you too busy coming up with a stupid-ass joke to pay attention? Second, the mayor is similar to the Queen of England. She's queen in title, but has no actual governing authority. Shinra controls everything, or did you miss that too? Third, who would Shinra be showing the blueprints of their building so that this would even become an issue? You think this mega corporation is going to show off their building plans to just anyone who comes in asking for them?
Think about it. You've been caught by security several times, walked in front of every other camera, and scared an accountant half to death. Do you hear the alarm? No? You're welcome.
The accountant Mayor Domino mentions only happens if you take the elevator up to the 59th floor. I took the stairs, so Cloud never frightened that accountant in my playthrough.
In this sin, you directly contradict an earlier sin.
Even if they weren't wanted criminals, I think a guy with a sword as big as he is and another guy with a gun for an arm would warrant attention.
Clearly, even if someone sounded an alarm, Mayor Domino would shut the alarms down. Now, for the actual wording of your sin, yes, the scene in question only happens with the elevator. But surely there's another accountant that they could have scared on the way that didn't have attention drawn to her.
You can now use it to access the recreational facility on the 63rd floor.
And then what are we supposed to do?
You look for a fellow Avalanche collaborator. Identify yourselves and he'll give you a key card to the 64th.
The Avalanche collaborator that can get them to the next floor is obviously known to the mayor, so why not call him or send his butler to go get him like he did Cloud and the gang instead of having heavily armed and wanted terrorists walk right through the packed recreational area to find him?
Hey D, about that question you asked me before about ice picks.
Yeah?
I think I'll instead use it to stab my eardrums. Holy shit, man. How the hell do you know any of the details regarding the Shinra employee? How do you know the assistant could find him and pull him away from the location he was standing in front of when Cloud and company find him? How do you know it possibly couldn't be seen as suspicious that the mayor's assistant is seen on a higher floor retrieving another employee? Or, how do you know the mayor wasn't doing this deliberately to test Avalanche with the Shinra simulator? I'm gonna say this again like I laid this out to you in my last video. Invest in a brain transplant.
Prove you're worth it. We have a state-of-the-art combat simulator. It can provide a real challenge, let me tell you. If you beat the sim, then the key card is all yours.
Why do they have to prove themselves? They survived the plate dropping, bombed 2 reactors, and snuck into Shinra HQ. What more do you want?
Okay, but, and hear me out, this may be a lot to take in. Avalanche is a large group. Likely, he wants to see firsthand if these guys are the real deal. Shinra is no joke to mess around with, and if he's gonna risk himself, he better damn well make sure he's risking it for the right people.
Cloud? Huh? You're Cloud, right? Holy shit! It's cool, bro. We went through training together.
The Shinra security guard recognizes Cloud, not from when Cloud and the others were broadcast attacking the second reactor, but from their training days. Shouldn't all Shinra security by now have been briefed on Avalanche, or seen the news broadcast? Wouldn't he have recognized his old buddy Cloud in those? He also doesn't spot the large man with a gun for an arm standing right behind Cloud, who should be Shinra's most wanted right now. I've seen better security in the storage area of Walmart.
This was the footage that was shown to the public.
The perpetrators of that atrocity were filmed making their escape. These agents of the eco-terrorist group Avalanche are currently believed to be in hiding somewhere in Midgar.
Notice how Cloud does not appear. What would have been better would be if you had said Shinra didn't apparently brief their military on Avalanche's standout appearances, especially with the Turks having fought Cloud in particular more than once.
The sealed executive meeting room is impenetrable, except for an air duct leading from the men's room. They designed their luxurious private room to share air directly with a restroom.
You know ventilation systems aren't a sin, right, Dartigan? Are you seriously considering that Shinra should have 2 separate vent systems running because bathrooms? It's also possible that the vents run away from the executive room if you're insinuating that the bathroom smell would be the reason that they wouldn't share.
Well, sir, I've also drafted a reconstruction plan for... Huh?
Not with the Ancient in our custody once more.
With respect, sir, I don't see how...
2 words, Reeve. Neo Midgar.
Have you ever wondered how Shinra came to control the world? They are a corporation after all that started off small. What happened to all the governments that would have existed before Shinra came to power? How does a corporation governing the world even work? For a corporation that's portrayed as the most evil, bottom-line driven capitalist enterprise possible, they have more in common with a centrally planned, resource-focused economy like Venezuela than anything else.
Who the f*** cares?
We could have the Ancient reproduce. In the absence of a second specimen, we would need to identify an alternative mate. I would start with candidates from Soldier.
Well, that makes a bit more sense than trying to breed Aerith with Red 13 like Hojo did in the original, but it would still hardly be a good plan, seeing as a child would only be a quarter Cetra, and would take another decade or more before they could be of any use.
How the hell would that not be a good plan? Even if the child has less Cetra qualities and genetics, they have Aerith in their possession, and Shinra would do all that's necessary to keep her imprisoned. Like they did with Afalna, regardless if she escaped.
How I should like to meet their offspring.
Something tells me there are several Pornhub tags on Hojo's degree.
I doubt he would have Pornhub tags on his degree. Why is Hojo being creepy a sin? Characterization is not a goddamn sin.
Just imagining how she might react if I were to present to her your fresh corpses.
So Hojo just has a button that can release all of his specimens in his lab because...
Okay, let me get this straight. Dartigan is asking why Professor Hojo, the head of the Shinra R&D, has a portable switch that releases all of his experiments?
The results provided by my predictive models indicate that this force should be more than capable of handling you.
Hojo just sicked a miniature Cthulhu on them and they killed it, yet his models predict a handful of security guards can deal with them. That's the problem with using only a single data point in your algorithmic model.
Or he's being a scientist and collecting more data. Just because that monster may have looked like an eldritch god doesn't mean it has the mental capacity of one. It's possible organized and heavily armed soldiers would theoretically have an easier time taking Cloud and company down rather than a mindless monster.
Now I recall, my memory was mistaken. My boy, you weren't.
Cloud's messed up head may have prevented him from hearing what Hojo just said, but Barrett and Tifa heard it, yet they will never ask Cloud about it.
Like I said before, it really irks me how you point out these nitpicks as if you yourself were in the same fucking scene inside the video game at the time it happened, and you say things as if you knew for sure. Yes, it's possible that Barrett and Tifa heard what Hojo said, but the current circumstances could have prevented them from talking to Cloud about it, or they could simply decide to talk to him about it later, maybe when they're not inside of the enemy's headquarters without an escape plan secured.
Shooting Aerith's cell open somehow unlocks Red 13's cell on a different floor.
If the locks are hooked up to the same circuit, yes, that would disable his door. Again, unless you have the blueprints handy, don't pretend to know the layout of the Shinra building.
Hojo left Red 13 in a cell with his headdress on, which contains materia. That's the equivalent of locking someone up with a handgun still in their pocket.
Motherfucker, are you listening to yourself? He was locked up. Your words. Red 13 isn't equipped with Knights of the Round here. He was in prison prior to Barrett shooting Aerith's lock. Do I need to say more?
I am that which you see before you. Nothing more.
But I'm not playable in this game. I guess that's one of the drawbacks of making Midgar into its own game. Red 13 is now introduced to the party at the very end of the game, when he can't be leveled up or properly equipped, instead of joining the party at the end of the first chapter of a much bigger game.
While leveling him up may not be as big of an issue, as you are in the final chapters of the game, I do agree with the second point. He should have been controllable, as he is an original party member of the original release.
No one in the group stops Cloud as he staggers down the hallway while mumbling to himself and clutching his head.
A possibility is that the party members could be seeing some of the same hallucinations as Cloud. Remember at the Cetra presentation how Barrett and Tifa also saw the meteor hallucinations.
Yes, understood. The VP needs us.
I'm not sure how Rufus knows this is his moment well before the events happen, but he calls the Turks to come and get him regardless.
What are you trying to say? The way that sin was worded sounded like complete gibberish. I'm going to try and formulate a response from what I understood from that drivel.
But he calls the Turks to come and get him regardless.
This may have been the moment in the story where Rufus was first mentioned, but even if he's the vice president of the company, he would still be traveling with bodyguards, which is why Reno and Rude are going to accompany him.
Okay, new plan. Y'all take Aerith and get the hell out of here. Me, I'm gonna go bust some Shinra heads.
Barrett, wait. You can't do that.
So am I to believe the Whispers will show up if you even mention doing something different than what is supposed to happen? If that's the case, why didn't they show up the second Barrett told Cloud he wasn't needed for the second bombing run then? Or all the other times people mentioned doing things differently?
Yo, are you high or something? Been puffing up to the point you're higher than Meteor? The Whispers have been intervening frequently throughout the entire game, and they don't always show up in the moment something different is going to happen. The reason they show up, despite what you think, is to prevent Barrett from going fucking nuts and start shooting up a storm.
So if we're destined for a bleak future, these Whispers will try to keep us on that course?
But you aren't bound for a bleak future. I beat the original game and it was your victory. Unless the Whispers are trying to make sure Advent Children and Dirge of Cerberus still occurs. In that case, defy away.
First off, Advent Children and Dirge of Cerberus were not that bad, so you can just chill out. Second, did you watch or play either of those? Geostigma and Deep Ground were both pretty fucking bleak. And third, this game and you have stated multiple times that they are fighting fate. They may not know what path their future takes, but if they know it's going to be apocalyptic in nature, you can bet they will fight away.
What are you doing, man? Hey guys, long time no see!
How did Wedge get on top of the plate and get inside Shinra HQ? He was at Era's house recovering while Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett had to climb buildings with grappling hooks to get topside, then do a lot of sneaking around and collecting keycards to get inside the building. Do you think he took the stairs too?
Mayor Domino is the inside man for Avalanche, and Avalanche consists of more than one group. Get your stupid ass jokes out of here and get that brain transplant, like ASAP.
Red 13 is not the optimal person to help Barrett move that wreckage due to his quadruped biology.
Hey, Dartigan. Red 13 ain't a person, so you're taking a sin for that. Second, he may not be optimal for helping, but does that mean he should do nothing?
Tifa should also show some animosity towards Sephiroth. After all, he killed her father and burned her home down too. And this time Sephiroth isn't just a vision only Cloud can see.
Tifa is just reacting differently than Cloud is. That's not a sin at all. If you notice, Tifa looks a bit fearful, which in her case is understandable. If you were a martial artist with excellent hand-to-hand skills, would you be eager to face a super soldier armed with a 7-foot-long sword who wields it as if it were as light as a feather?
There goes Cloud surviving yet another big fall.
He is a soldier. He has, and say it with me, extreme durability.
Hojo's lab turns into an episode of Scooby-Doo now that Red 13 is here. The party has to separate into two teams, Tifa with Aerith while Red 13 joins Barrett and Cloud. Outside of including every single weird enemy design from the original game in this area, this is some filler-ass filler.
Are you fucking serious? Tell me something, Mr. Lying Manipusing Pop Referential Parade Shitter. Where the fuck is the grand mystery that Cloud and company need to solve? And where the fuck is the costume ghoul that they pulled the mask off at the end, revealing Old Man Rivers as the culprit?
How is it we've gone backwards with what can be shown in a game? In the original, Sephiroth left a trail of red blood in his wake as he killed everyone in the building. Now it's only glowing purple blood from Jenova, who he removed from containment.
Now this is a section where Omega and I are not completely on the same page because I unfortunately haven't played the original 97 classic in its entirety, but Omega has, therefore this sin is a bit tricky. Although I didn't dislike the scene, I'll let Omega explain why he feels the original was superior.
The sequence of Jenova going missing in the original game was tied into Sephiroth's appearance in the Shinra building, and as my 97 fans will point out, it was nowhere near as watered down as this remake. I can forgive Jenova not having red blood, but back in the original, there was a literal massacre that created the trail to the top floor. Bodies laid out, sword slashes in the background, as well as blood-stained floors and on the walls, all accompanied by the eerie Trail of Blood song. Now the circumstances in the remake are very different since this game isn't following the 97 original exactly, so there's not a lot of point in comparing the two, but I feel you have a point here, Dartigan. Alright, DEDMan, back to you.
From my experience and responding to the sin, we don't see the rest of the building though, we're in the lab section. Besides, as Omega agreed on this point, do you really expect Jenova, an alien, to have red blood?
So did Sephiroth throw President Shinra through a window and over the side of the building without killing him, then leave and come back to finish the job after Cloud and Barrett showed up to rescue him?
Yes.
Barrett allows President Shinra to scramble back to his desk and rummage through it, and is surprised when he pulls a gun on him. What did you think he was doing?
Barrett was clearly taking his time and savoring the moment. Likely, he thought the president was cowering and not retreating to pull a gun out.
Morally evil people really get off on those slow trigger pulls, don't they? Relishing every single millimeter.
Yes.
The Whispers act to stop Barrett from shooting Sephiroth, except this isn't the real Sephiroth, just one of the Sephiroth clones. In fact, it's Marco from earlier, so killing it would change nothing. And the group does kill it right after this anyway when it transforms into a part of Genova. But the Whispers don't stop the Sephiroth clone from killing Barrett, they just bring him back to life afterward.
You need to make your points clear. If I need to bring in John Madden for a play-by-play for your cacophony of bullshit, you're doing your job wrong. For reasons beyond our control, it may be the will of the Whispers to not kill off Marco unless he actually transforms. By this logic, you'd be cutting out a spectacle of a boss fight where we as the player have it sink in once again, this is not the timeline we know of. Also, the Whispers don't stop the Sephiroth clone from killing Barrett. What do you call exactly what they did? Barrett didn't die, and they just flat out prevented him from dying.
Can you call this Deus Ex Machina if it's written into the plot as exactly that?
And ripping a page straight out of CinemaSins' playbook, Dartigan does not know what a Deus Ex Machina is. The Whispers were first shown back in Chapter 2, and mind you, they also prevented Cloud from killing Reno back in Chapter 8. So just with these facts, this is not a Deus Ex Machina.
We can finish off the family here and now.
Take Aerith and get out of here.
I'm fairly certain as a group you could waste those Shinra security guards and take Rufus hostage. Cloud ordering Barrett and the rest to leave while he buys time makes no sense.
Cloud and company have no idea if there are reinforcements on the way. Their mission was to rescue Aerith, and they did just that. Their escape plan was leaving by roof, and they are currently being blocked from that. Besides, yes, they could probably take out the soldiers that are on the roof currently, but as the following boss battle shows, Rufus is not some useless rich boy. He can hold his own in battle and then some, making their odds of success drop way down.
You're a soldier, aren't you? Which, of course, would mean that I own you.
Rufus doesn't even know that his father is dead yet and that he's the one in charge now.
What the hell does that even mean? Rufus is the vice president, and even if he didn't know his father was dead, his executive position means he has authority to an extent.
Damn, did this fight get reworked? What was a pathetically easy fight was turned into some Devil May Cry level stuff.
Dartigan recognizes greatness, so a sin shall be removed.
Recall back to when it took both Aerith and Tifa to lift Cloud and his sword up in the sewer.
Dartigan thinks Tifa Lockhart isn't capable of helping Cloud by herself. That's worth these many sins.
Shinra must have built that robot inside the elevator, because there is no way it squeezed through the doors.
Okay, what's the point of this nitpick? They obviously didn't build it in the elevator, and it gets out to fight the party, so your sin makes no sense.
I'm sorry, Cloud.
You're not fooling me, game. You didn't kill Wedge the last time, so I'm not buying that you killed him here, especially when you fade to black on him.
Good lord, about time you have some shit to say that I agree with when it's my turn. I was getting ready to bail on this video to drown myself in liquor to the next century.
How does a falling elevator get stuck on the 59th floor? Floor models are not normally gassed up and have keys in the ignition, but somehow Cloud and Tifa found the two that were.
I like Cadillacs. You like Cadillacs? Well, come right around here, brother, and get in this Cadillac. You're gonna love it. This is style and beauty. Comfy, right? Oh, I know what you're gonna say. That's vinyl, but take it from me, you don't want leather, brother. Leather's hot, it's uncomfortable, it cracks, nothing but trouble. Look at the headroom you got in here. A guy like you's not gonna have any problem. Go ahead, start it up. Listen to that. That's power. That's performance.
You know what I like best?
What's that?
The price.
Hey! Wait a minute! You can't drive that car
Cloud is more accurate hitting goons with a motorcycle than dozens of armed men are with their guns.
Oh, hell no, you did not just sin the scene. I don't care what crap you used to justify this. 10 sins!
Barrett and Red 13 are not sent flying out of the truck bed by that landing.
Fuck me sideways. Ugh, another shot for me. And this line also from earlier is for this sin. Who the fuck cares?
Good thing no one else in Midgar is driving tonight.
Omega, pass me the sauce. I need a couple of shots myself. Cause this dude and his sins are just illustrating how much he doesn't pay attention.
The hell did he say now?
Chime in, buddy. Dartigan, Midgar is on high alert after 2 reactors going sky high and a plate falling. Do you not think there's a curfew or lockdown in place? Pay attention.
Him again! Guess we owe you another.
At least the whispers show you just how much bullshit happens in a game that characters otherwise wouldn't survive without direct plot intervention.
How the f*** does this sin make sense? Yes, we know the characters have plot armor when it's convenient, but that's part of the story this remake is telling, and you already know this. So this is a case of Dartigan points out what's happening on the screen cliché.
This fall also fails to eject Barrett from the truck bed.
Roll the clip.
Who the f***?
This is the point where the devs finally lift the facade that they've created a remake of Final Fantasy VII and reveal that you've actually been playing a sort of sequel, though I like to think of it more as an advanced New Game Plus, because all the story beats are still there with only a few alterations here and there, and I'm willing to wager the same will be the case with the future games as well, no matter how meta they try to make it seem.
Oh dear God, man. The butchering of the word facade nearly made me facepalm into unconsciousness that Sin Counter told me about in my last video, and that shit by itself warrants 50 fucking sins. Next, remake implies they remade it, not that it's a one-to-one adaptation. With video games, a remake always changes something from the original game. Also, now? So there's no other incident before now that this game is taking different routes with the original story?
Sephiroth has to be stopped. He has to be. And that's why I'm asking you to help me.
Stopping Sephiroth isn't really changing Destiny now, is it? That was the conclusion of the first game. The game is dressing this up like a big deviation, but it's still headed toward the same goal as the original. In fact, if they are defying fate and deviating from the original timeline, then they are taking a huge risk, because they are deviating from a path where they win and defeat Sephiroth and save the planet. When you examine this closely, Aerith comes off as a save scummer, reloading her save because she didn't get the very best ending.
Stopping Sephiroth way before he's supposed to show up is a huge deviation in Destiny if you ask me. They aren't taking a huge risk as Aerith is Cetra, meaning she is the only one capable of using the white materia to save the planet, which is the perfect counter to Sephiroth's black materia. So, no, Aerith isn't save-scumming because she didn't get the best ending. She is one of the few people truly capable of protecting the planet.
They walk through Aerith's portal into some other Midgar, one where they can have a spectacle battle in the sky that tears a city apart, but has no effect on the actual canon since this is some parallel empty Midgar that exists for final boss fights.
Imagine making a video called Everything Wrong with Final Fantasy VII Remake and completely ignoring the fantasy aspect that's an important component of this game's story.
The Whispers coalesce into the Harbinger of Fate, a massive entity meant to keep the timeline intact. Final Fantasy is no stranger to sudden final boss fights representing concepts of reality, but this one doesn't really make any sense. It wants to preserve the path that Destiny has laid out, by killing Cloud and the party, which would deviate from that path quite a bit.
At what point is it specifically stated the Arbiter of Fate would kill them? Likely it would weaken them and toss them back into reality.
The Arbiter of Fate's main attack is hitting everyone with spoilers from the original game.
Or hitting them with vivid images they do not understand?
Because they couldn't very well have Motorball be the final boss fight, nor the kind of weak Harbinger of Fate, the game gives you Sephiroth to fight instead, which means they're going to have a hard time coming up with a final boss fight for the last game in the series. They even pull out the One-Winged Angel God Choir music that Sephiroth is known for, so I guess they'll need to come up with a new soundtrack for that fight too.
Omega, I need a new bottle!
Coming right up, dude.
Whatever problems this causes in the future, this fight is not a goddamn sin. It's possible you still will fight Safer Sephiroth, but it's way too early to tell. Also, yeah? Do you really want to fight Sephiroth without One-Winged Angel? 50 cents for giving me a brain aneurysm from sheer stupidity.
Admittedly, it is a damn good boss fight.
You'd think I'd simply remove a sin for you again acknowledging an excellent boss fight, except for the fact that you sinned the boss fight happening in the first place. Only a walking contradiction like you would think of something that redundant.
We can do this. We can. We can change it. Make it right.
What exactly was there to make right? In the original game, Sephiroth was defeated and the planet saved. I highly doubt Aerith would be going to such lengths to change destiny to save her own skin.
Aerith is going to extreme lengths to save more than just herself if you hadn't noticed. And again, since you seem to have forgotten, this is only the first installment of a familiar game, but with changes to the original storyline. We don't know yet what will happen in the future, and you sure as hell don't either. But it's fair to assume things won't play out exactly as they did back in '97.
I feel like I just speed ran the game or no-clipped all the way to the end of Final Fantasy VII.
Dartigan makes a Final Fantasy VII reference that isn't a sin about Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Careful now. That which lies ahead does not yet exist. Our world will become a part of it. One day. 7 seconds till the end.
Sephiroth has spent a bit too much time in the Kingdom Hearts universe.
Considering Tetsuya Nomura helmed both projects, yeah? Like, I don't get the actual sin here. It would be great if you could be specific.
I can get behind the idea that things are no longer locked into following the outcomes of the original now that they have defeated Harbinger of Fate, but that should only affect things that haven't occurred yet. Events that already happened should still carry those consequences. Yet the ending shows that Biggs and possibly Jesse are alive, and the biggest change of all being that Zack might still be alive as well in some alternate timeline. If I end up fighting multiple versions of Sephiroth in the final game, I'll petition to rename aneurysms in medical textbooks to Nomura's.
And that, kids, is my limit to how much bullshit I can take for this video. D, I leave that cornucopia of bullshit to you.
I'm going to use Final Fantasy XIII 2's example for this. Before you boo me, just hear me out. If you change the future, you change the past. Since Sephiroth showed up sooner than when he did in the original game, that's thrown the timeline completely out of whack. It doesn't get mentioned much in time travel media, but it's the truth. If you change what makes the future, you have no idea the ripple effect it will cause outwards.
Break the sound barrier and there's a sonic boom. You broke the time barrier, Flash. Time boom. Ripples of distortion radiated out through that point of impact, shifting everything just a tiny bit, but enough.
Also, for as far as we know, Zack being alive and all the other changes could be in another timeline. Point being, it's way too early to decide if this is something wrong with this game, as there's no way of knowing what Square Enix has planned for the next part of the series until we see otherwise.
We're leaving.
Materia growth accelerating, outpacing models.
We have to stop it quickly! Clean up the mess, would you?
Ma'am.
Hey everyone, OmegaBlackHeart here again. First off, I really want to thank every one of my subscribers for their patience on these videos. I'm really pleased with the fan base building on this channel and really appreciate your support. Second, I want to extend another great thank you to DEDMan of DEDMan Gaming Wins for his help on this project. Before we depart, my man, I hope the next project we work on is less of a hassle than this one.
Thanks again for having me on, dude. I had a blast working on this with you, and I look forward to working with you again. Thank you everyone for watching, and try not to die out there.
Sweet. Now, before I end this video, I also wanted to let you guys know that... Oh, hang on everyone. Let me go get that. Oh, why there's a couple of police officers outside. Let's see what's up. Hello there, officers. What can I... Oh! Oh, no, wait, what are you doing? Oh!